Hello, I want to talk now about the AP language rubric for the analysis essay. And as I've gone over several times before now, for most of you, you know that this is a 3-point rubric. And that means that, well, not 3 points, 6 points. There's 6 points, but there's three rows on the rubric. The first row deals with your thesis. The second row deals with your analysis and evidence and commentary. And then the third row is the sophistication point that you're going to try to earn. These rows are fairly simple to understand. I just want to point out a few things that I really want you to remember as you get into this. First, if you simply restate the prompt, okay? If you simply restate the prompt, you're not going to get the point for the thesis on the rubric. It's absolutely critical that you have a thesis that is believable, that is clear, that does not simply restate the prompt. You want to avoid the exact language of the prompt. So, and then the other issue here is the intended thesis provides a summary of the issue. This is what I see happening most often with essays that go horribly wrong, is that the author has addressed what it is the author of the essay, so the student has addressed what the author is writing about. They have not addressed how the author is writing about it. It is so important as you approach these rhetorical analysis essays that you are asking yourself, what is the author doing here? Right? What are they doing? How are they accomplishing the task of communicating persuasively and clearly? If you write about what the author is talking about, you are not going to score highly. It's that simple. It doesn't matter how inflammatory the essay topic is. If the essay topic, for example, is saying something like, it should be perfectly okay to, murder babies after they're born, right? So what's your problem with abortion? It doesn't matter how inflammatory the topic is. It doesn't matter how crazy the topic is. It is absolutely critical that you are not responding to the topic of the passage you're asked to analyze. You must respond to the methods that the author is using to communicate their topic. And so you want to talk about the imagery they use. You want to talk about the appeal to logic. You want to talk about the emotional appeal. You want to talk about the syntax that is used to drive home their point. You must ask yourself, how is the author doing this? What is the author doing to communicate their message effectively? Do not engage the material, the actual topic itself. That's not the point. You will often be asked in some way to articulate what the author's topic is, right? And so they'll usually ask you to imply what the topic is. So does the author support whatever the idea being addressed, or do they go against it? Are they criticizing it? Are they saying that it's better than something else or worse than something else? But it is not your place in this essay to say whether or not you agree with them. And that is absolutely critical that you don't do that. Then again, you must have a defensible thesis, and the thesis should respond to the prompt. And so that's what you get the points for. Responds to prompt with a defensible thesis, right, that analyzes the writer's rhetorical choices. So there's the three aspects of that there. And then you want to go on and talk about evidence. Remember, with evidence, make sure you support all your claims. If you make a claim in your thesis and you run out of time, so you do not defend, say you have 3 claims in your thesis, and you defend the first 2, you run out of time. You've got a 3rd claim in your thesis sentence, right? And you don't have time to address it. Go back, delete it. Don't leave it there. If you leave a claim anywhere in your paper where you make some assertion, you say the author uses inflammatory diction, okay? If you make that claim, you better defend it. If you do not defend it, you're going to lose points. It's that simple. You must defend every claim that you make. The other thing here is make sure that you are using the quotations. Do not assume that your reader knows why you use a quotation. Do not assume that the quotation is so obviously in support of your point that you don't need to talk about it. Remember back in the instructional videos that we went through, you were told that you need to have roughly 2 lines of commentary for every quotation. So if you have a quotation, particularly if it's a significant or longer quotation, you need multiple sentences of commentary explaining how that quotation supports your argument. If you do not include that, if you think, well, I really don't need this, I really don't need to comment on this, there's not much to say about this quotation, then you probably don't need the quotation. The quotation probably is pointless. So make sure that you explain the quotations that you use and show how they link back. Commentary on the AP Rhetorical Analysis exam does not simply mean summarizing what it said, what the quotation says. Commentary is not summary. Commentary is taking the quotation and showing how the quotation supports your thesis. The metaphor that I think is helpful here, an analogy that I've been using, that I think helps illustrate this, is think of your argument as the bone, right? Think of your argument as the bone. Think of the evidence that you use as the muscle, right? The evidence is the muscle, right? And your commentary is the cartilage that links the muscle, or the sinews, the tendons that link the muscle to the bone, right? The muscle is useless if it's not attached to the bone. Muscle standing off on its own is completely pointless, right? It's got to be attached to the bone. You've got to link it up to your claim, or it's absolutely pointless. Don't have muscles lying around without any connection to the bone, right? A muscle not connected to the bone is of very little use. It's almost as useless as fat if it's not connected to bone. Okay, maybe not true, but you get the point. All right, work with me here. Then so commentary is critical. Okay, commentary is critical, and then also make sure that you are explaining multiple rhetorical choices, not just one, multiple ones. And I'm going to go through some examples of what it means here when it talks about rhetorical choices. Then the last thing here is sophistication. This is critical. Okay, you want to get this point, and this point is actually fairly easy to get. If you explain the significance of the rhetorical situation, it's going to help you get this point, especially if you link your argument back to the rhetorical situation. So if you identify that one of the rhetorical appeals that an author uses, right? So answering the what question, what is the author doing? If you say the author is appealing to his audience's religious sensitivities, and given that he is writing in a religious magazine, this is an effective rhetorical choice. That's great. What you've done there is you have linked the point you're making and the rhetorical choice that you've identified that the author is using, you have linked that back to the rhetorical situation. That will get you this point. It is so important that you think about the rhetorical situation in connection to the argument that you are making, the rhetorical choices, the rhetorical elements, or the devices, the elements of the resources of language. or elements of rhetoric that the author is using. Think of those in connection to the rhetorical situation. This is pretty simple. For example, if you're in the example of Madeleine Albright, right? She has an incredible, right, amount of personal credibility as she is talking. If she's talking about women in positions of power, she is a great example of that. She is in a position of incredible significance as she gives that speech. Given her position as Secretary of State, meeting with all kinds of rulers from around the world, largely she is responsible for the implementation of much of America's foreign policy as one of the most powerful figures, if not the most powerful figure on the world stage. And so you've got a lot of, she has a lot of personal credibility talking about that issue. Make sure you bring that out somehow. Okay. So linking those together is important. And then explaining the function of the passage's complexity and tensions. So what are some of the tensions within the passage? Can you explain those? Can you show how the author is conflicted? Can you show how the author has two ideas that don't quite work well together, and how that produces some of the tension in the passage? So peel back the layers, look under the hood, as it were. Think about what's going on behind the scenes. What is it that's driving this author? Are there multiple layers and multiple aspects to what's being said? An awareness of that will show that you are a sophisticated thinker, that you're thinking carefully, that you can see beyond the surface, that you see what's behind the curtain here. That's very, very important. And then finally, employing a style that is consistently vivid and persuasive. And so this is your own writing. Your writing, avoiding passive voice. Right? So using active voice throughout your writing. Thinking carefully about how you word what you word. Using strong verbs. Using parallel structure properly, consistently throughout your writing. Not repeating yourself in ways that sounds trite. Making sure you don't repeat the same words close to each other. When you repeat the same words in the same way, in the same context, the sameness tends to grate on the readers, unless it's done in a way that is clearly rhetorically effective. So if you begin a series of sentences with the same introductory clause for effect, that can work. Think of Churchill's, right? We will fight them on land, we will fight them in the air, we will fight them on the beaches, we will fight them, and he goes through that part of that famous speech that way. That use of anaphora is effective. But if you're not doing something that is distinctively effective like that, then you want to avoid repeating the same words close together. So think about your writing style as you go through. So that's the rubric. Let's go on and talk about a few other elements that I think will be helpful to you.